To the guest on here on Fox Sports 910 is Rick Neuheisel. Coach Neuheisel joins us now. Coach, Rock and Minuch, thanks so much for joining us. It's coming to the end here, and you all ready to go with the SEC Championship tomorrow on CBS?
I am ready to go. Just got back from rehearsal over there, and looks like all systems are go, gentlemen.
All systems.
LSU trying to defy the expectation at the beginning. I think they were picked to finish last in the SEC West, and Brian Kelly said not so fast, and they got them to this game. I know everybody wishes they'd have knocked off Texas A&M except for Aggie fans, and had they done so, they'd be playing for a berth in the playoffs, but not this year, and maybe that slows down the expectations and is more fair to the beginning of the Brian Kelly era there in Baton Rouge.
Coach, it was doomsday early on, wasn't it, for Coach Kelly? I mean, everybody was like, oh, what a bad mistake and this and that. And here they are, a couple months later playing in the SEC Championship.
Yeah, it was a great job. That wins over Alabama and Ole Miss were great, and not to mention that they were in front of the home crowd. So they were huge opportunities to get that home crowd behind his team. Jaden Daniels, obviously Arizona State fans familiar with him, was brilliant in both those games. In the Ole Miss game, I think he ran for over 100 yards and threw for 200 plus, and it was the same kind of output in the Alabama game. And then the 2-point conversion pass in overtime was off the charts. So I know Sun Devil fans miss him as the quarterback, but he's done well there at LSU.
Yeah. Rick Minuch here, and it's always great to catch up with you. Let's talk about that a little bit. You look at his numbers last year, they shooting his numbers this year. First of all, close to 70% completion percentage. TDs are up by 15. Only two interceptions. So when you watched him last couple years versus this year, was it the coaching? Was it the offense? Or was it just the light bulb went off as far as reading defenses and distributing the ball properly?
I think, to be fair, probably a little of all of it, right? Probably a little of all of it. They certainly played to his strengths. Mike Denbrock, the offensive coordinator at LSU, was the offensive coordinator at Cincinnati the year before. And Desmond Ridder was his quarterback. He ended up being a second-round pick to the Falcons. And Ridder was the first guy to take a group of five team to the college football playoff. Cincinnati getting to play Alabama last year in the semis. So this is a guy who knows what he's doing, especially with dual threat kids. And he put Jaden in positions to be successful, and Jaden rewarded that with great play.
On the other hand, you look at Stetson Bennett. You watch this young man, just the consistency, the big plays. It's as if everybody's waiting for him to falter, Rick. I just get that feeling. That kid steps up more and more. Talk about the poise, 16 touchdown passes, only the 6 picks. And you look at his completion percentage and the way he distributes the ball very evenly.
Well, they have given him the keys to the car. Todd Monk, and the offensive coordinator at Georgia, absolutely believes in Stetson. And remember, this is a 25-year-old kid. I mean, he's been around a long time, given the extra eligibility that COVID afforded. So he's made the most of it. He won a national championship. No one has ever believed that he was good enough to be the starting quarterback at Georgia, and yet he continues to do just that. He's thrown for over 3,000 yards. He's, very adept at getting out of trouble with his legs, and he's a terrific player. Although it's interesting, he had 29 touchdown passes a year ago and only 16 this year. So a little bit more leaning on the run game when they get down close to the goal line.
Coach, I want to ask you about this transfer portal and now these quarterbacks. Of course, McNamara, Pine now in the transfer portal. McNamara already going to Iowa. Who's pulling the strings here? Can't they wait until January 15th or first, second week of January? This seems a little ridiculous that it's happening like this.
Well, the transfer portal opens this Monday, okay? And so these are just indicators that they're going to go into the portal. But what happens is you've got this week that once the last week of the season was over, there is no recruiting. Coaches are basically having one-on-one conversations with all the college kids out there and then saying, listen, are you staying? And here's why we'd like you to stay. Or are you going? And maybe here's why you should consider leaving. And those conversations are not only telling kids they should get into the portal, but they're also telling kids, we may not have a spot for you here. And that's the dirty little secret of the NCAA right now.
Okay.
We got 2,000 kids in the portal, roughly 2,000 kids in the portal, and 40% of them, fellas, are not going to get another job. They're not going to get another school. And for us to leave those guys outside looking in terms of their education is a failing by the NCAA, and we got to get it fixed. We need to be the adults in the room and make sure that we're looking after these kids and providing their education.
But for like Pine, coach, he started 10 games for Notre Dame. He was 8-2, 4-1 against top 25 schools, and here he is, 3 years eligible, and he's like, I'm leaving Notre Dame.
Yeah,
it's hard as a fan to accept that.
Okay, so here's what I'm guessing happened. I have no, I have no inside knowledge, but what I'm guessing has happened is somebody has reached out to him and said, we've got a spot for you. We've got a name, image, and likeness deal for you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if you come here, you're going to be our guy, and you're going to get this deal. And what you need to do is you need to go and see if Notre Dame is willing to commit to you that you're going to come back into camp. Remember, he replaced Tyler Buckner.
Yes.
Are they willing to commit to you're going to be the starter when you get the spring ball? And if they're unwilling to, you should think about doing this. He's from Connecticut. He probably wants to get back closer to home if it's not going to be the starter at Notre Dame. And all of a sudden he's got a cush deal waiting in line. Cade McNamara was in the transfer portal for about 1 day.
Yes.
And then he's at Iowa.
Yeah.
These deals are being hatched well before you press send on that computer. and it's bad for college football. This poaching is bad. And we've got to figure out a way around it.
Rick Neuheisel joining us here on the right toe to guest on Rock Minutes with Jimmy B. Well, speaking of the challenges and transfer portals and NILs, Kenny Dillingham named the head coach at Arizona State University. Rick, what are some of the challenges to that he's going to have to face, and just the challenges to bring that program? And Rick, you and I grew up here for a 3-9 ASU program. I know there's a lot in the blender, but after you stir it all up, what should it look like, let's say, 3 years from now?
Well, first of all, let's talk about his attributes. He's a bright young coach. Oregon's offense was 5th in yards this year, 8th in points. That's a guy who knows what to do. He's been around some really good offensive coaches. Mike Norvell, he cut his teeth with Mike when he was at Arizona State. He went with Mike to Memphis. Then he got on with Gus Malzahn at Auburn, and then back with Mike at Florida State, and now with Dan Lanning, who he met along the trail at Oregon. He got Bo Nix to come with him, who he coached when Bo was a freshman at Auburn. So a lot of this is, he knows how to build an offense. Now it's about, can he go get players? Mm-hmm. One thing he had at Oregon was resources.
Yes.
The guy by the name of Phil Knight provided resources to go and get kids to want to come and be a part of the Oregon machinery. And that's what's got to happen at Arizona State. Whether it be Ray Anderson or Kenny Dillingham or whomever, somebody's got to rally the masses in the Valley of the Sun, and we know how wonderful the Valley of the Sun is. I can't wait to come home. I'll be there in about 9 days. We know how wonderful it is, but somebody's got to rally and make Sun Devil Stadium the place to be on Saturdays. Got to make it the biggest party, the biggest fun place to be, and create an environment of energy that's going to be encouraging young people to want to come and be there, because if they do, it can be wonderful, and great players will come and play at Arizona State. Don't know what the future of the Sun Devils is with the Pac-12, with the Big 12, with wherever. But I do know that Arizona State's a wonderful place, and there's a great community in and around Arizona State, and it should be a successful program, and I got my fingers crossed for Kenny.
And without the cash, and I hear what you're saying, Rick, because you've been in those living rooms throughout the nation recruiting those kids at Colorado, Washington, and UCLA. So is the other selling point maybe giving some of these 3, 4, 5-star kids a chance to play right away if you don't have that cachet in order to give them, and maybe they earn that? I mean, is that kind of that give and take? You're going to have to go down that road. Hopefully realize I'm going to play as a freshman versus waiting 2 or 3 years.
Well, there are a bunch of, what we called 3-stars that are going to be left out there because people are saving spots for transfers. So you can go and try to develop, but you're going to have ready-made skill players, ready-made guys like we saw Lincoln Riley with Caleb Williams, like we saw Brian Kelly with Jaden Daniels. Those guys made quick transitions to success because they had ready-made players. And they did it with called ready-made collectives. And if you don't have the money to go out there and put some NIL deal on the block, so to speak, as you negotiate with these kids, then you're outside looking in. I was in the golf cart with Pat Narduzzi as he tried to talk Jordan Addison into staying at Pitt. And he didn't have nearly the kind of bankroll that was being offered by those at USC. And you couldn't blame Jordan Addison for doing it. Is this a sustainable model for college football? I don't think so, but it's the way it is right now. And if you don't have an ability to get kids to want to be a part of something, as well as, take care of their financial needs, or at least their inner circle, or sitting there financially wondering what's available, you got to have something that can, be at least competitive with all these other schools that are certainly doing that to encourage kids to come to their campus.
Coach, we're not seeing numbers published on what these kids are making. What are you hearing? What is a range of what at least the top players outside the collective?
Well, I'm getting ready to do this Georgia-LSU game, and my sources, and this is non-confirmed. Okay,
sure.
This is all, and most of the conversation when you hear it is almost always exaggerated.
Right.
But my sources are telling me that every kid on Georgia's team is getting $6,000 a month through the collective, added to their scholarship. So that's
30.
a huge chunk of change for 85 kids, and I don't know if the walk-ons are participating or not. That's a huge chunk of change. That's a commitment. And there's money now, given what's going on in the television world, to do that via your academic, your resources that are coming in from television. But if you are getting that money from boosters and donors, now you're creating pseudo owners that are going to make it very difficult to run the business as we've run it in the past. So that's what's going to be really interesting. But if I'm Ray Anderson, I've got to go and get a group of guys that are interested, or families that are interested in supporting Sun Devil athletics, and we've got to create a collective that can compete with these guys so that kids want to spend their time at Arizona State rather than take the money to go elsewhere.
Oh, I hate this. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. Rick, thank you, especially. You're on the road, and we always appreciate when you come back. We owe you some golf, and you'll give us a bunch of